Morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Social Media Fridays, episode 82. Each week we meet here to answer or talk about things that happen in social media in the past 7 days. Topics of interest are posted on the Social Media Fridays community. You can find it on Google+. You can add your own topics and you can also join us here on the panel. David Rozam is with us tonight. David is a copywriter of 30-odd years standing. He doesn't look that old. And a SEO, proud to call himself an SEO for the last 12 years. You can find David at writingforseo.org. David is in the lower part of England. Edwin Young is CEO. Edwin is CEO of Idis Host in the Netherlands. He's a web host and also an SEO. You can find Edwin at idesthost.nl. Masataki Wasa runs wasaweb.net in the UK. That's wasaweb.net. Masataki is also a Google top contributor on the AdSense and the and also the Google Plus Help community. Meher Bhagat is a human resources dynamo, social media queen from Delhi in India. I've forgotten your URL, Meher. I'll try and remember next time. And Tim Capper. Tim is also proud to call himself an SEO. He's a conversion rate optimization specialist from the frozen wastelands of Middle England. You can find Tim at onlineownership.com. Right, our first topic tonight is what's ahead for social media in 2016. This was a fairly light article, I thought. Not much happening there. I expected better from, who was it, CNN that posted it? Or MSNBC, somebody or other. But
CNBC.
That's all we've got this week.
Okay, according to the article, Snapchat will go public. Facebook Messenger will get more integrated with Uber, and probably with more companies. So basically that you can order or buy things through Messenger. Of course, there will be more content deals. Snapchat has a deep relationship with the NFL, and Facebook will work with publishers for instant articles. Google is doing their own with AMP, and Apple has something similar. So we will for sure see something in the content. How to provide content for the different platforms. And of course the buy buttons. I almost forgot them. But yeah, that will be, I don't know if it will be in 2016, but people are getting ad blindness, so it makes sense for social media to get a different revenue stream, in this case a buy button.
Yeah.
That was my take on it.
Thank you, Edwin. Snapchat going public. I wonder if they put all those photos public.
I don't think so. The validation of Snapchat is 16 billion. Lately, a couple of startups, their validation went down. So I wouldn't be surprised if that number after the IPO is way down. It's probably not 16 billion.
Are any of us involved in a Google AMP project?
No.
Any of us doing that?
Oh, because there was a mention about Facebook in that article. Sorry, there was a mention about Facebook and that all sorts of things are going to take place within that platform. So there is a similar version of Facebook, right? Was it the same thing? I don't remember.
Yeah, instant articles.
Yeah.
And I think Apple's doing Apple News from memory. But not sure how that's being called, but Apple's doing the same as AMP or instant messaging. The AMP is basically a subset of HTML, while the Facebook instant messaging or instant articles is somewhat of an XML file. So it's a little bit of a different implementation.
And
to be honest, I don't think it will be popular here in the Netherlands with publishers, because more and more publishers, especially news publishers, are getting a paywall. So
yeah, but I mean, do paywalls work? I just refuse.
yeah, but on the other hand, publishers have to make money, and at this time they make money through ads. And if people install ad blockers or getting ad blindness, at the end of the day, the publisher needs to pay their journalists, their buildings, and everything. So if they cannot make the money through ads, for sure they have to get to different model. And in the Netherlands, the paywall is getting more and more popular among publishers, which might suggest that the revenue from ads is going down.
But are people actually subscribing to the services to get through the paywall?
Well, they have apps, right? So you.
Yeah, if such and such a publisher decides to stick all their content behind a paywall, it doesn't mean that people will necessarily pay to see what's behind the paywall.
Yeah, but interesting thing is that this is impressionistic, but I think people are far more willing to pay for an app still compared to a paywall on the web, if that makes sense. I think people are still used to paying money for apps, whereas I think many people are so used to having access to websites for free on the web that subscription model on the web might have more difficulty than perhaps, saying, look, we have this wonderful app, it's going to cost you X amount, download it. But of course, the question is this.
The paper version is going down, right? The subscriptions for paper versions are going down. More and more people are going online for the news, and if they cannot make enough money online by being public online, that is, they have to do something, right?
Yeah. So
all I'm saying is that from what I understand, paywalls have been notoriously unsuccessful so far. So it will be, as Masataki said, it's interesting to see if people will pay for an app effectively just sticking a different label on it, and will people do that? Will people be
Well,
hoodwinked?
I think for big newspapers, especially English newspapers that are read out throughout the world, right? The paywall may not be the best option. But the Netherlands is quite a small market compared to German or English newspapers. And if they all go to the paywall, then at the end of the day, Dutch have to pay, right?
Yeah, because I was going to say, you know, I've got my Apple News here, which gives me, well, in my stream here, I've got the Daily Telegraph, the Guardian, CNN, the Independent, loads of other odd things.
But no FT or the Times.
Sorry?
But no FT or the Times, right? Or do you have Times articles?
No FT all the Times, no.
Because they're behind paywall.
Yeah.
I think the Sun used to be behind paywall, but now it's freely accessible. Not that I go to the Sun website, so I don't know, but I thought that was the case.
Wasn't the New York Times behind a paywall? Because I've got stuff here from the New York Times.
New York Times, I think, gives you X number of articles for free per month, and of course they track that using cookies. So there are ways to, I think, get around it. But I think Wall Street Journal is behind paywall, if I'm not wrong. FT used to give you a free article, but I think they no longer do that. There are certain sections of the FT which are free to view. The same with the Economist, I think, that the blogs and certain things are publicly accessible without paying, but I think some of the content are behind paywall. So I think it depends on the readership, in a kind of, are there the kind of people who are willing to pay for journalism? And I think if you're running the New York Times and the Times, you could argue that there is sufficient number of people who value the news source enough to pay for it. I mean, the FT is definitely the case because it is. There must be a lot of institutional subscriptions and individual subscriptions because it's the FT, and if you work in certain sectors, you need to be able to access what is being written on the FT.
And a different movement here in the Netherlands is that basically you pay per article. I shared a link in the chat. This one is called Blendel. It's for the Netherlands and Germany. They are starting in the United States, or they try to start in the United States. Basically, all the newspapers are here. Some magazines are here. And what you do is you pay per article. So that is a paywall too. But you don't subscribe to the whole magazine or newspaper. You only pay for a particular article.
Yeah, that's been sort of mooted for a long time, the micropayment kind of thing, isn't it? So you pay by article. Of course, there are cost elements to it, and how successful it will be is an interesting one, because it's been, I think, mooted for a very long time. But so far, I don't think I have seen any particularly successful implementation. It's a great as an idea. You pay for what you want, and you don't pay that much.
This one makes money. I think they are in profit. So.
Mm-hmm.
But that will for sure for the publishers be an issue. Is how to make money online, right?
Yeah.
And how to sustain your readers, because especially on the internet, people switch from newspaper to newspaper. They don't really care. It is not like the paper version where every day you get the same newspaper and you get used to that particular newspaper.
Yeah. It is an interesting one. Now I hope it works, because I think quality journalism isn't cheap.
No, indeed.
And we do need quality journalism. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And we have to find a way as a society to support that.
Well, especially in Britain, they do that, right? Through the BBC. That's a huge fund.
Yeah, I think, but BBC is restricted in how they can report the news. And I think that's the interesting thing in this country. I think is that newspapers still have very strong hold on how the news is reported and how the narratives are spun. Because newspapers can be partisan. In other words, BBC cannot be partisan. And it's interesting because you look at news and they say, no, BBC is often quoting other sources. They can discuss what others are saying, which they themselves cannot write directly, if that makes sense. And for that reason, I think the paper editions are really important still, because that fixes the point of the discussion, the beginning point of the narratives, the beginning point of discussions. If you don't have a paper physical copy that is restricted by time, as it were, then it's going to be very difficult for newspapers to really determine the course of the narrative. And so I personally think the paper copies will have to be around. But I think, so on one hand you have the likes of the FT and the Times and the Economist that have gone to sort of the paywall model. There are publications that have refused to go on the web, so that people have to buy paper copies, in a sense. Private Eyes, I think, is a good example, because if you go to the Private Eye website, unless things have changed, they have few articles, the front piece of the week or of the publication, and that's about it. You don't find the content online. You have to go to a kiosk or newsagents to buy a copy. And then you have The Guardian, which I think has been quite clear in saying, we're not going to go the paywall model. We want to make sure that we can generate enough revenues through other means. So you can. So what they're doing is they're offering incentives for people to join their, if you like, a club. So they're not making news, access to news, restricted. But what they're doing is they're trying to offer extra. And they're offering writing courses, for example, or trying to live off the brand of that journalism. So it's interesting how different companies are trying to generate money, because I think that, if you like, there isn't really enough money in ad revenue alone.
No. Different model, like probably a little bit similar to Guardian is, where you have this small articles, and if you want to know more, you have to pay, right? You have to be subscribed to the newspaper. More in-depth articles are then available to you, but for the public, only small articles loaded with ads, of course.
And I think the Guardian gives you everything for free, essentially.
Oh, okay.
I think the Daily Mail has a very good web presence. I mean, I think they might be making good money, and it's a pretty nasty site to look at, but they're doing well. as far as I'm aware.
Pretty nasty site to read as well, but
Yeah,
perhaps that's
pretty
another-
nasty. Pretty nasty to look at, pretty nasty to read.
Hey, don't take the mickey out of the Daily Fascist. I love it.
The Daily Fascist, which is that paper in the UK? One of Rupert's, is it?
No.
well, it could be one of many, actually.
The Daily Mail.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think we've covered this, guys, unless I receive objections.
I'm writing one now.
Well,
Dear sir.
Disgusted of Tunbridge Wells.
That's the one. That's me. No, I'm disgusted of Norfolk, apparently, this week. So it says here. Sorry, please go ahead. I wasn't trying to interrupt you or cause any problems here, Jim.
that's okay, mate. I'm easy. Just go with the flow. Well, look, I think we can safely close up. We don't have any eyeballs watching us at the minute, but I'm sure that they'll come along later. When you're watching this later, thank you for your interest. Your interest in what we do makes what we do worthwhile. We'll be back here at the same time next week to do it all again.